guys, welcome to episode 3 of Beyond the Live Room. We have a very special guest today, Ms. Priyanka Khimani, probably at the forefront of intellectual property law for music. And please tell me more about you, because as I mentioned before this podcast, we really didn't know who you were or the kind of work that you were doing.
Ouch, that hurts.
It's okay. I think that speaks more about a disconnect between what we do as musicians and artists and the legal profession when it comes to music law than it does about...
And we're always behind the scenes.
So are we most of the times, though, as musicians for other faces, things like that. Also, being behind the scenes is not a bad way to be, you know. But anyway, thank you for taking the time to be on this podcast.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So would you like to tell us about maybe how you decided to pursue intellectual property law for music? Are you a fan of music in general?
I am. I'm a generalist, so don't ask me what type of
that
music
was my
I
next
listen
question.
to. Don't ask what type of music I listen to. I listen to everything, literally. So there are days where I'll wake up just listening to a playlist by, songs from Lata Mangeshkar or Kishore Kumar, to someday I'll wake up where just back-to-back Eminem songs are playing on my playlist, to some days when I'm listening to a Qawwali. So, or right now I'm listening to all of Sid Sriram's music because he's amazing. Adiye has been playing on loop constantly. So yeah, across the board. So I'm a generalist, but I do love music. I unfortunately don't play an instrument or can't sing. I think everyone will have to leave this room right now if I started doing that. I do have some sharp DJing skills, is what I'm told. Yeah, but I only play Bollywood.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I love it. And I think on most days, the reason I enjoy it so much because, you feel that you did play a tiny part when you hear that recording or when you see a campaign go live. And, it's what we consume. It's what we dance to. It's a big part of our culture. So I feel very, very blessed and pretty cool that we're doing what we're doing.
Right, definitely. So how do you get into the legal profession? What was that about?
I needed a paycheck.
Yeah, fair enough. So started out as a means to an end?
Started out, completely. I'll be brutally honest. Yes, as much as I hate to admit it. I used to write for film and TV for a while, struggled quite extensively, wrote a bunch of scripted and unscripted TV, assisted a whole bunch of people. Interestingly, I also used to write a radio show that used to be hosted by Archana Puran Singh. This was back in the day when I was, I think, still in law school, just out of college. Anyway, so did a whole bunch of that. So I've been on the other side of the table, the creative side.
Or the gig economy,
yes,
if you want to call it that. Yeah.
So I did that. It was definitely a means to an end for me because I came from really pressing circumstances back home. So the money made all the difference. I was studying, so there's this is a flexible job. You can.
Right.
I practically would finish college in the morning and run off to being on a set or at a shoot or in a recording studio. And I think a large part of the reason for me being able to build the kind of practice that I have built today. And I say this very often, even to a lot of young lawyers who say that they want to have a career in entertainment, is I think a large part of the reason why we've been able to do this is because of all of that experience that I had over a period of 8-10 years, trying different aspects. I dabbled a little bit in theater, in modeling, in ads, in, fashion shows, and of course extensively writing. You see a lot of failure. Of course, I mean, you try, you fail, but you make a lot of relationships and you learn a lot.
True.
And I think a lot of those learnings today help me because very few lawyers have even set foot on a set, right?
Right, there's a big disconnect between...
There is. You're at times fighting endlessly about termination or about indemnities or about ridiculous things without at all realizing how is it going to practically turn out when your talent is on that set or when your talent is about to be on a show or if, when you're touring across the country for a bunch of shows together with your crew. And I think having experienced all of that in a whole different sense brings a very different dimension to our practice. I say this again to a lot of young lawyers, especially to the lawyers within our team, that what you need is a commercial bent of mind, right?
Yeah.
People are not coming to you for you to always tell them what is it that you can't do. They're coming to you for you to be able to tell them how is it that they can do what they really want to do without upsetting any of the systems or violating any laws or doing it within the legal framework. And I think that's the value add that I feel as a commercial lawyer we bring to the table, and which is why we've built the sort of reputation that we've been able to build today.
Okay, amazing. So we were joking a few days ago about how maybe to get access to some of the finest legal minds in the country, it's probably easier to start your own podcast and then invite her as a guest and then pick her mind for some free advice, which is not what we did
But
here.
easier than that is just DM me on Instagram and you'll still have a response from me.
Right, fair enough. This just seemed more entertaining though, because you don't get coffee served on
It seems
Instagram.
more drama, right? I mean, at least it's a
does.
good story.
It does, and this way we can tell people that we actually know Priyanka, as opposed to we've DM'd Priyanka, which is a big deal. But anyway, so as someone who started out maybe 10 years ago as a musician or 15 years ago as a musician and has worked their way up to where they're a composer dealing with production houses, I've seen that the exploitation of talent begins at the lowest level and works its way all the way up to the highest level. We can get into specific stories of my life later if we need to, because I'm okay with burning bridges, naming, shaming on the podcast. But the first thing that we need to, or I would like to ask you is, why is it that talent doesn't get paid on time? What do people do with this money? Do they earn interest on such small sums of money for like 6 months at a time? And what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen or this doesn't become a recurring incident?
Let me ask you a question. How is it that lawyers don't get paid on time or lawyers don't get paid at all?
Because you do a lot of pro bono work, but that's on you.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
So let me bust a few myths. Okay.
Please do.
Not
about lawyers though.
No. I empathize. I empathize with the artist creative community. But like I was saying earlier, being a talent lawyer extensively, I get to see it from a bunch of different perspectives, right? I don't think it's a question of, why does talent not get paid on time? It's a problem that's universal. Vendors don't get paid on time today.
True.
When you have a show, right?
Definitely. Ad agencies don't get paid from their clients.
Lawyers don't get paid from their clients. At times we work on a deal only to be told that, the deal didn't go through, so sorry, we don't think we need to pay you for 8 months of effort. It happens. It happens all the time, right? They don't realize that we're not agents or managers who need to get paid on a contingency.
Right,
it is ultimately
by the
time. Or people don't believe in paying for advice. You go to a doctor and you pay for a consultation, but somehow when you come to a lawyer, you don't feel the need that you need to pay a lawyer for advice, right? So I think not getting paid is a universal problem. When it comes to artists particularly, let's deal with that, right? Why are production houses the way they are? I don't know how many of them insist in the beginning of a relationship that they want to have some sort of understanding in writing. Now, when I say in writing, I am not insisting for a moment that you compulsorily have long-form contracts drawn out, right? But even simple email communication, even simple WhatsApps, right? Just exchange. We're all very savvy. You're sending your scratches to people on WhatsApp so that they can give it a listen. Why can't you in the same breath just say, hey, I'll do it for this much, agreed.
These are the terms.
Just by the way, I'd like to get X amount paid when I'm starting work today. And the balance, can you let me know by when should I expect that payment? Just create a written record. It is as simple as that.
Okay.
You don't need a lawyer. You don't need anyone to teach you this.
Right.
You just need to have it somewhere there and ask these questions first instead of asking them later when you've not gotten paid.
True.
Because then I don't even know what to hold the other person to. Did I commit that I'll pay you by XYZ date?
Right?
No, you never asked. Right?
Yeah.
So it's really common sense. Unfortunately, I don't think people realize that it can be as simple or as straightforward as that.
Okay. And this, maybe a written communication is somehow legally binding if push
all
comes
of
to
it
shove?
is, right? I mean, we're in a country under our contract law, even oral contracts are perfectly valid and binding contracts, right?
But there
Contracts need not be, of course, and you will need evidence and demonstrate if you have a witness, if you and I are together and someone else is in the room and says, yes, Priyanka did agree to this, that's that. But so also any written communication, right? Your emails, your WhatsApps, your text messages, voice notes, all of it is perfectly valid and binding. What's a contract at the end of the day? It's an exchange between two people, correct?
Right.
So long as it meets those basic essentials, it is perfectly valid and binding. You have, in this country, even contracts by conduct. So let's say there is nothing that's sort of, where I'm being able to crystallize it, but you and I have been meeting, talking, I've been inviting you to my studio, you've been coming in every single day, we've been jamming together. By conduct, I am acknowledging that, hey, you and I are part of this together, right? It's a little difficult for me to then make a U-turn and say otherwise. So what I'm trying to say is that even within the legal system, there is so much flexibility. You don't always need a lawyer, and you don't always need a smart contract to be equipped with. It's just common sense that you
something
need.
as simple as laying out your deliverables
Invoice,
and the
send
terms
a
of
damn invoice, right?
Right.
Har cheez ke liye we submit an invoice today. On your invoice, just write terms at the bottom,
Would
saying
like to be paid
50%
by-
today, 50% on delivery, whatever, right? Whether you're delivering a scratch, your shoot makes, your master, but set it out. Your invoice is a perfectly valid contract.
Superb. So step 1 is have something down in writing.
Yes.
Step 2, how
And
to
raise it before everything else, not after.
Definitely. I think Indians need to be more comfortable talking about money upfront. Somehow it's not polite or whatever. No, I think it needs to be.
No. I
Yeah.
think we're so curious to know people's salaries
Yeah,
and
but
how
in
much
all-
rent do you pay. So I don't think we
But-
think it's impolite.
But you would never ask these questions upfront. You'd go via the most backward route you could to find out the answer to this question.
I guess.
Okay, step 1, put it down writing. Step 2, how to enforce all of this. Because I'm telling you, production house accountants, based on the excuses I get, are either ill or on vacation all the time and unable to sign checks. It's like, oh, my accountant is ill.
Send them a damn notice. It doesn't cost you much to send a notice. You
How
can't
much
go
would
to a
it-
lawyer. If you can't go to a lawyer, just send them a stinker. Draft a stinker and send it, saying this is uncool. If I'm not going to be paid within 7 days, I am then going to, XYZ. Either make sure that you're not going to tell them, if I'm not getting paid, you're not going to be able to use these works, period. Because guess what? For any assignment or license to be complete, consideration is important, right? If you haven't been paid the entirety of your consideration, that other person's enjoyment of your rights becomes bad in law. So just write. Again, people don't. We're all complaining, we're talking about it, but we're not taking action. It's important to take action. Coming to how much does it cost to go to a lawyer? Well, it's like saying that you could go to a dentist who would extract a tooth for 500 rupees, as opposed to you could go to a dentist who would do the same thing for 5,000 bucks, right? There's the difference is in the quality, in the
Which
in your recovery after that, and what happens. So it's the same thing, right? So I don't think there's any benchmark. So also not every surgery is straightforward. Some might be complicated, some are fairly routine. So that again determines how much or whom do you go
need
to
to speak
and
to,
who do you engage, right? So it's the same thing when it comes to legal services. All advice is not uniform across the board. I'm
Right.
going to have to spend time to see how complicated or how straightforward a case is. Was there enough communication? Was it only you that was involved? Are you coming? How timely is your action? Have you slept over it for 8 months and woken up today saying, "नहीं, अब मुझे कुछ करना है, पर अभी क्या भी करना है," right? When you knew that the film is going to release on XYZ date, why have you woken up today at the nth minute? So I'm saying there are different parameters, different factors to be considered. So it's unfortunately not. I don't think any lawyer is going to be in a position to give you a benchmark and say, "हाँ,
Right.
हर notice इतने में जाएगा."
And
It
you
doesn't
can-
work like that.
There's no template for it either.
There are no templates for anything whatsoever. I'm going to say this on record where I have the opportunity to put it
Yeah.
out there. So contracts and templates, right? Very often people
Right,
will say,
yeah.
"कि हाँ, आप template भेज दो." But
True.
guess
Boilerplate.
what? One size ain't fitting all. It just doesn't work like that. Sure, you'd have certain things that are fairly standard, but in my career of 8 years till date, I am yet to use a copy-paste agreement. It
Okay.
just has not happened. Even for the same client, we could negotiate for them across the board. Take any one of my top music composer clients, right?
Sure.
Every single time we do a film, we will negotiate again from scratch, because guess what? Even if I use the same contract, the person on the other side is not the same. Each producer may have different set of considerations that they feel they want to change in the contract, or they want to negotiate differently, right? So also at times every producer or studio wants to use their own template,
Yeah.
quote unquote, or format. So
Right.
again, I am looking at a different version each time. So even for the biggest of talent today, I cannot do a copy paste job and saying, "No, sir, this is it, take it or leave it." It just doesn't work like this.
Right, you have to meet them halfway at some point
You
also,
have
right?
to. And this is another thing that I always maintain, that unlike what people tend to think that, "Oh, I've been shortchanged," or, we always have to give up our rights, and the record labels are screwing us, and producers are screwing us, and aise hi hota hai. Well, guess what? A lot of it is a commercial transaction, right? It's willing seller, willing buyer.
Right.
It's like how you go to buy a house. Imagine you went to a developer who, you wanted this house, you were willing to pay a premium for it. You paid a premium for it. The developer built something that was really nice and, upscale. And once you buy it, that house is yours outright, correct?
Yeah.
Is it okay then for the developer to say कि नहीं नहीं पर साल में एक बार तो मैं आके free of cost आपके घर में रहूँगा? क्यों? क्योंकि building तो मैंने बनाई ना, flat तो मैंने बनाया. It's the same logic, right? Imagine you are wanting that someone pays you top dollar for your music, and then you want to not even have the commercial consideration to understand that you parted with your rights for a certain commercial consideration. It was a willing decision, right? So then why does it make you feel so bitter when that person ends up and goes further to make some capital out of it or does some modifications, etc. Again, look at the house example. I could buy a plot of land that you thought is just a damn barren plot of land. I took it, built a house, managed to sell that house further for a premium. Can you feel bad about that? Sure, yeah, shit, I should have had the foresight to see that I could have made something. But guess what? You didn't. You willingly sold it to me. I paid you the price that you wanted to be paid for it.
True.
What I managed to do with it then is to my credit.
Right. And if it would have gone the other way, then you would have...
Equally,
so
right? Exactly.
Yeah,
and again, I'm saying this despite being a talent lawyer. I don't mean to sound this cynical and this unsupportive.
No, talent can be stupid. It's okay.
But
we understand
I'm not saying stupid. I just feel that, look, ultimately, why are we doing it? You're doing it for, yes, popularity, credit, to put your works out there. But you're also all doing it to make money, right? At the end of the day. And these are all just the way commercial deals work. Sure, there are smarter ways of doing deals, right? So for example, if you feel that, look, I want to still be invested tomorrow, if there is an upside to this, you could negotiate a percentage of what that upside is. You could negotiate and say that, look, I'm giving you all my rights, but tomorrow, let's say you want to make another derivative of this. You want to make it in a different language. You want to revisit this after a few years. Come back to me and use me only as your composer. If I say no, go to someone else. Things like that, right? I mean, these are smarter, practical solutions, because what is it that you're going to do with the rights at the end of the day? You want to be able to exploit it, right? You may not always have the means to invest in it, or you may not want to invest in it, but at least there are ways of ensuring that you're tied to the fate of what you created for the lifetime of copyright in that particular piece of work.
So this other thing was, say, when I did my first film in Bombay, they handed out a contract, the production house. And the good thing was, say, we came from a relatively well-educated background. We had access to a couple of very close lawyer friends in Bombay who were happy to take a look at it. But still, Barucha doesn't exactly specialize in intellectual property. But as a friend, she took a look at it, made some notes, and said, please send it back to them. And they were like, yeah, we honestly don't care what changes you made, because you won't be able to...
Take it or leave it and sign it.
Yeah, and even if we make your changes, you won't be able to enforce half of this nonsense anyway. How are you going to come calling? And then it got very ugly later when the production manager basically tries to extort 10% of everyone's fees across the board. That's their job in filmmaking. Whether you're a set designer, a dancer, a music composer, they'll try to take...
Okay, that I don't know. I don't get involved in that.
But now, a lot of talent comes from smaller towns. Doesn't necessarily have access to a lawyer, to friends in the legal profession, and are just happy to take that first paycheck, irrespective of how much that amount is, as a foot in the door. How do you think maybe they should... And it's never a production house's duty, or even they don't need to tell you to maybe take it to your lawyer, right? Anywhere else in the world, if someone gave you a contract, they'll be like, have your lawyer look at it. In India, it's here you go, sign it, make your song, and then we'll pay you whenever we see fit. How do you think people who are entering this talent market should maybe find access to a little more legal help, or a little savvy when it comes to dealing with contract?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a need for people to reach out to the right set of people, right? People who specialize in doing this, because at the end of the day, even within the world of IP, sure, there could be many IP lawyers, but there are very few who understand entertainment. Even amongst that pool, there are very few who understand music and copyright in music, right? I mean, I can literally, I think, count 3 names, who understand and do what I do. So yes, there is a need to go to a specialist. It's, again, the same example that you don't do surgery on your own, right? Sure, you can look up things on Google and self-medicate, and then we all see the results of that and how that will backfire.
I spent a month looking for something on the IPRS website, and all of it was so ambiguous, none of it made sense.
And you don't need to. Instead, if you just picked up the phone and called a lawyer and paid for it, you would have time is money, right? But unfortunately, we don't want to take that step. a lot of artists will, you'd happily spend on that gym trainer or that nutritionist or
Or a
that
beer,
fancy ass
man.
dermatologist or that new bag, but you don't believe in spending on getting good legal advice. That is just the ground reality. I hate to say it, but it is. Coming to your specific example, right? Let's assume that I'm a small town artist who has a deal from a production house. Now, what's the end goal? You want a break, you want a foot in the door, right? I agree and fully acknowledge that bargaining power perhaps comes with time, either with time or with talent, right? What you have is so damn mind blowing that I'm willing to entertain some of your tantrums, if not all. Or that you're a talent of a certain level, and it's important that I associate myself with you. Now, for a small talent who wants a foot in the door, tell me one thing, that I don't think that artist is fussed about holding on to his copyright anyway.
Not
right?
at all.
What's his goal? That look, I have created this piece of work. I will be amazingly grateful if this piece of work is, if you like this has to be placed in, say, your film, or will feature in a music video, whatever, right? Against that, pay me. Now, what that payment is, again, it's bargaining power that will come with age. I have done things in the beginning of my career for a fraction of what we probably would charge today, but I didn't get there overnight, right? 8 years ago, I could not have said that, I'm going to be, you need to pay me X per document or per hour. It takes you time to get there, right? As a doctor, as a lawyer, as a person in any profession, your first job is not necessarily $1 million job, right? You start at a measly stipend and, whatever.
Yeah.
Why is it any different when it comes to being an artist? What, you get, fine, sure, hopefully someday you think you're worth a crore or more, but there is a starting point, and I think that's just everyone's career trajectory. So that's that. Now, look at that same example, right, where it's that small artist who is getting paid a limited sum of money for assigning all of his copyright for the opportunity that he is going to get, that eventually his works are going to be placed. At this stage, what is it that he should be most concerned about?
The visibility, maybe, that.
The fact that he needs to get credited
Right.
for his song, so that nobody else takes his credit, and so that there's recognition at the very least, and that even if it's a limited sum, that he's getting paid. Right? How that schedule is, 50% now, 50% later, 10 now, balance, whatever, that can be figured out within parties, right? The third thing is rights, but at that stage, like I'm saying, it's a commercial transaction, right? You need to bear in mind, what is it that I want? Do I want to hold on to rights? What am I going to do with these rights that I'm holding on to? Or do I want my works to see the light of the day where someone else is willing to spend more money in production, in marketing, and putting these works out there? So you're not fussed about rights, then why is that contract so bloody important that you want to, get a lawyer, etc., read it? Anyway, half of that contract is going to talk about only your assignment or transfer of rights.
Yeah.
Why are you fussed about that at this stage when you're not holding any rights back?
Right.
So think of it practically. The two things you need to look out for is, okay, credit hai, payment hai, done.
Sure. So maybe publishing rights you give away anyway because it's being...
Again, I don't want to ask this, but 9.9 out of 10 times people don't even know what publishing rights are.
Which is my next question. Shouldn't they be aware of the distinction between, say, mechanical rights and then rights that a songwriter or someone who's basically written these words should have?
Yes, you should, but honestly, it's like telling a lawyer that should you not know what the mastering process is, should you not know what a shoot mix sounds like.
Okay, is it that in depth though? I feel
it
like
is,
for someone
right?
dealing...
Look, I can get expert. That's why you have a team, correct? As a lawyer, my core business is to know the law and is to know certain commercial applications of what I'm doing and how, of course I need to understand a little bit about the process, technicality, etc. But do I need to be an expert in it? Probably not, right? Similarly, when you talk of an artist, yes, they should have some basic knowledge of contracts or copyright and, how do copyright societies work or how are their royalties going to flow to them. Do they need to get into nitty-gritties of this? No. And that's why you need to equip yourself with a team, which is why the job of a good agent, a good manager, a good attorney is exactly this, is to make sure that, you go do what you do best, make your music, let the others fuss about it, right? Unfortunately, again, in India, you don't have good quality artists, managers or agents. And when I say that, I don't mean to undermine large variety of credible managers and agents that I work with, but most of them unfortunately are fussed about अच्छा लास्ट शो इतने में किया था, ये शो इतने में करेंगे, पिछला गाना इतने में था, इस गाने के लिए मुझे इतना दे दो. पर उसके आगे हम सोच ही नहीं रहे हैं क्योंकि उसको भी नहीं पता है कि what is publishing or what part of copyright should I keep for my artist so that my artist benefits in the long run, and neither are they in turn seeking help, right? So to answer your question simply, I think yes, there's some amount of knowledge that's required, but again, you need to build that team around you. Go seek advice from an expert who knows it.
Right. Also, I feel like maybe, I don't want to term it as mid-level, but say mid-level musicians around the world where you have better intellectual property law in place, or you have better money collection for royalties, etc., have a steady stream of income, even if they're not necessarily at the top of their game. It's not heavily weighted towards the 1% that makes the hits, and then everyone else has...
Yeah.
Say people here, I mean, you throw Stone now, you'll probably hit someone who's making a TV show for Netflix because everyone's making. And some musician out there is probably composing said music for that TV show and probably has rights to some part of the royalties that he receives from maybe that show forever. Don't you think there should be a way where these kind of musicians can also have a recurring stream of income?
100%.
Right?
100%.
So how do they go about it? And let's say they're not generating enough revenue yet to have a whole team around them. Anything DIY you can do?
Yeah, absolutely. For starters, become a member of the relevant copyright society. IPRS in India, most of them are not even members of a society.
Neither am I.
Right?
I don't know who's taking my royalty money.
But 1 minute. Let's exactly take that statement. Who is taking your money? Why are you not a member? What's stopping you?
Laziness. Can we edit this out and say,
there you go.
I had knee surgery for 6 months, so I was just in bed doing nothing.
And this is exactly the problem.
Laziness.
People will say, I'm not a member, so I don't know who's getting my royalty. But dude, it's probably sitting right there for you. Number two, sometimes they will become a member by some miracle, and then just don't bother submitting their works. So IPRS को सपना आएगा कि आपका कौन सा गाना है.
Isn't that how it works?
No, dude.
I'm sorry, I'm
kidding.
kidding.
It doesn't, right? So, like, out of your millions and lakhs of songs in this country today, how am I supposed to know किसने कौन सा गाना लिखा है?
Right.
And some artists भी कि हाँ पर हमने तो membership form sign कर दिया. अरे पर उसके बाद क्या? You know, आप गाने compose करते जा रहे हो, वो गाने सब जगह बज रहे हैं, perform हो रहे हैं, but you're not telling your one person who you've appointed as the gatekeeper of those particular set of rights
that these are my works.
These are the works. आपको इनको monitor करना है. जब तक आप नहीं करोगे तो कैसे होगा?
Right.
Right. So it's all.
So the framework
honestly,
is in place
it's
in
not,
India.
I think everyone's just overwhelmed with the subject and with the idea. But if you break it down, it all flows logically from point A to point B.
Right.
Right. Like I'll give you another practical example. Everybody does live shows.
Yeah.
Huge nuisance for promoters and venues when they say, "Arey yaar, IPRS PPL Novex comes at our doorstep," and you know they're just like troublemakers. They're the mafia. They're like recovery agents. Blah blah blah. Right. Or I'll have artists saying, "कि यार मेरे खुद का show है, मेरे खुद के गाने हैं. What the hell? Why do I need a license?"
Yeah.
Right. Let's break this down.
I'm actually late for one of these sound checks for a show right now.
Okay, so when you're doing a show, even if you are the original composer of that song, right? When you're doing your own show, you don't even submit a set list.
Right.
Right? What's a set list? Simple. Your 3-hour show, what are the 20 songs that you're performing, right?
Right.
If you do that, if your manager, your tour manager, your promoter, or whoever is in charge of production had the common sense to do it ahead of time, submit it to IPRS, you would be paying far less because then you're paying for actually what you're consuming.
Only the songs that are not composed by you.
You'd get a quote. In fact, the tariff is publicly available, so it's not rocket science. It depends on the size of the venue, AC, non-AC, different things, but it's a tariff for all to see. There's no some hidden cost ki kaun acha deal layega IPRS. It's not that, right? You submit your list of songs. You could have gotten a license beforehand and avoided that embarrassment of someone coming on and ruining your show before it started. Now let's break it down. What happens, right? When you don't do it, IPRS comes at your doorstep. You end up coughing a sum of money. Say आपने 50,000 दे दिए, right? Because now the show must go on. You've paid $50,000. IPRS has just taken that 50. I don't even know to which songs to attribute this 50 because you've not told me, right?
No
I've come last minute. आपने तो दे दिया कि बस जाओ अभी यहाँ से, right? So now it's come and it's sitting in IPRS. How do I attribute it?
Who does it go to?
As opposed to, had you actually given them a set list, you would have paid exactly for those songs, and IPRS would know that, okay, I got 50,000 bucks in respect of these 20 songs. These are the various writers of those songs, composers and lyricists. These are the various owners of that composition and literary works, right? So I would take my administration fee of say 10-15%, whatever it is, and be able to attribute the rest as 50, 25, 25. 50 would have gone to the owner.
Right.
The other 50 would have gone to the author.
Yeah.
We don't do it. And then we complain that humko royalty nahi milti hai. But sir, you don't believe in taking a license.
Right. But every time someone over the last year has played some Pratik Kuhad song somewhere, he's hopefully getting paid for his trouble because, I mean, Cold Mess got covered by everyone.
I hope so.
Everywhere.
I mean, there again, most bands who are performing, and it's unfortunate, it's something that I've been talking to IPRS and PPL for a while now. And it's great that you bring up Pratik's example. We worked with him extensively.
Right.
Now, when bands cover and, they're performing at smaller venues, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because there is no clarity that on whom is the obligation to seek that public performance license, very often venue and the promoter will put it on the artist and say, nahi boss, you should have taken this, ye to hum nahi denge. Now bands will come and tell me that, Priyanka, we're getting only paid some 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 bucks. Abhi usme se koi aake bolega ki nahi 20,000 ka license hai, wo kaise hoga? But this is a practical difficulty that everyone needs to figure. Again, had we done it before, had we done it ahead of time, we could have had a limited sum that we know that is to be paid. Right. The other thing that I do tell a lot of bands, independent bands that do a lot of live gigs, is that please raise this beforehand when you're getting booked for that gig. Make it abundantly clear that this is the sum that I'm going to get paid. Anything over and above that is required in terms of licenses or clearances is not our responsibility. Right. And pin it down that it is the responsibility of either the venue or the promoter, and let them have absolute clarity amongst themselves that who is going to take this. But not taking a public performance license is a non-option. Right. That's not happening because now you understood why one is important. If you put money in one, it's trickling down to Pratik at the end of the day.
True that.
Right?
Yeah,
and it'll happen. It's the same thing. Tomorrow, this band could ultimately have their own work, so somebody else will perform. True. Right? Are you going to be happy if people did that and just you saw no part of it?
You would like to see.
So there is a system in place. There is a mechanism in place. Unfortunately, there is zero education, zero awareness, zero wanting to learn, wanting to do something. This is why the ranting bugs me so much.
Although, I mean, I guess the desire to know is not that strong, but honestly, in the 10, 12 years that I've been playing live music, this performance license thing has almost never come up. I don't know why, because, I mean, most of our shows growing up have been cover shows, right?
Hopefully your venue has always had a license.
I hope so, but honestly, knowing the kind of venues...
Most restaurant chains do have licenses. Most hotels have licenses.
But they don't ask us to submit a set list before the show, after the show. Where is that money going, really?
It's sitting in a black box, and therefore, ultimately, then you have to end up with some sort of distribution scheme which will be dictated every single year in an annual meeting.
To the guy who sells the most records.
Yeah, it'll be like market share. There are different parameters like market share and number of works controlled, etc. But had you followed it, we would not be having such a black box of royalties sitting where you don't know how to distribute it or whom to distribute it to.
True.
And again, I'm saying it's not that it's a problem that's specific to India. In a lot of other countries, you have what we refer to as black box royalties, right? Where you don't know to whom does this have to be distributed. The unfortunate part is that in our country, it's that portion is a lot more than the portion that actually is attributed to someone specifically. Right. So we need to change that order. It's going to take a lot of education, a lot of awareness, both from IPRS, PPL, Novex, as well as promoters. Yeah, this podcast, artists, venues. So I'm trying. I do as much as I can to talk about it, but we have a long road to go.
Yeah, definitely. And also, hopefully, now that musicians maybe know that all of these routes are accessible to them, they will make more of an effort to get in touch with lawyers, maybe music lawyers specifically. Although where to find them, I don't really know. But
I think word of mouth or just DM me.
Yeah.
Shameless plug-in.
DM her. I will ask you to recommend some of your competition, but I guess no such thing is going to happen here. It's only Anand Anand and Khimani and nothing else. Okay, so we discussed live music, right? Another issue. So I'm on a group of WhatsApp group of like every drummer in India. And the other day, one of them started whining about how a music executive from a record label that I cannot name, for an artist that I cannot name, we'll put it down in the video, all of it, okay? hasn't paid him for a show in November that he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then a bunch of complaints followed from a lot of other drummers with the same
Add me to
executive.
this damn group, yeah?
No, it's about drummers. You won't appreciate the drum-centric humor. It's terrible. It's horrible. Sometimes I want to kill myself. But and then the other day I was at rehearsal with another client yesterday, and I was talking to them and this band about the same guy. And turns out he has a reputation amongst everyone for just not paying on time.
How many of them have sent him a notice?
So almost none. So the first thing I asked him was,
There
hey
you go.
guys,
There you
I'm
go.
talking to Priyanka in 2 days, and I will bring this subject up. Can you tell me what your communication with him has been like? Do you have some kind of understanding on email saying, and he's like, no, not really. I'm like, okay, so when you try to follow up about your money, does he just put you off? Does he admit that he owes you money to begin with? And he does, but he just refuses to specify when he'll pay him or just follow up.
Okay, so I'm going to give free legal advice right here, right now. So you can post it on your drummers group. Yeah, drum roll.
Yeah, she should be on the group. Done.
I've earned my spot.
You have.
Okay, so non-payment or recovery of monies is the most common problem that clients will come to us for, at least in our contentious practice group. Bunch of questions that we ask. Do you have anything in writing? Is there an invoice? Did you have an agreed sum? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. WhatsApps, text messages, everything's fair play, fair game, that's fine, right? Number one, if you have that, if there's a sum that you did tell them, great, that helps. Question number two is that, have you finished your deliverable, right? Is there something pending at your end? Let's assume for the sake of this conversation, everything's done, I've delivered, it's gone, it's being utilized, right? Great. Number three, like you meant, what you brought up, is it an admitted debt, right? Because that makes life a whole lot simpler. More often than not, if the person is just sort of, skirting the issue, is just dilly-dallying, is not, so long as the person is not expressly denying the monies owed to you, it is an admitted debt, right? Number four, who is the person who owes you this money? When I say that, is it a proprietorship? Is it a partnership? Is it an LLP? Or is it a company, right? Based on what the nature of the other person's existence is, you have different remedies, right? Today, you have something called as the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code that was introduced a couple of years ago in 2016. It was largely introduced to help people that are owed money, especially, but only applicable against companies. So wherever the debtor is a company, it's great. You just need to send them a demand notice under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. More often than not, you will see companies sitting down across the table, reaching out and saying, okay, we pay you. Because the consequence of non-payment or of having a debt for a company then is that you could potentially move for liquidation of a bankruptcy, which means that not just you as a creditor, but every creditor can get attached to that petition and stand in the line of creditors.
And everyone will get paid.
For your 50,000, 1 lakh, 5 lakhs, I can't afford to have my entire company declared insolvent. Neither do I want some 5 other people getting up and saying, "Arey boss, isne kiya hai."
Money?
So more often than not, you will see that we'll end up recovering money using that. If not that, it's difficult when the person is a proprietorship, because what is it? It's an individual, right? Then I mean, maine haath upar kar diye. So which is why, again, when you're dealing with the person, ask these questions before, right? What's the nature of the person that I'm contracting with, that I'm dealing with? Is it an so many times people will say ki, give me a name of a label.
Sony.
Just no, give me like a made up name. Okay, let's say drum roll music. Drum roll music,
also,
right?
That's not the label I was talking about this whole time. Okay, it's not. Don't hold me. Okay, continue.
Drum roll music, for example, right? So I'll ask someone that, okay, what is drum roll music? They say proprietorship company. I said, darling, there's nothing
LLP.
like a proprietorship company. It's either a proprietorship or it's a company. Then I have to spell it out for them. I said, okay, does it say drum roll music private limited? Company hai. Still don't take their word for it. Go look it up. You have a website. It's called mca.gov.in. It's a database of all the companies and LLPs in this country. It's as simple as that. Go, put in the name, you'll get all of the information, so you know for a fact whether or not it's a company and you're not guessing, right? So it's easy if obviously contracting with proprietors is difficult because it's an individual at the end of the day. So if there is, you are owed money and they don't want to pay it, How are you going to recover it? Their recovery is painful. Sure, you could file a suit. There are other things you can do, but you probably spend more money than you'd ever see it at the end of the tunnel. With companies today, you have companies, LLPs, even partnerships actually to a certain extent. You have a lot of tools, mechanisms, demand notices, just pure recovery notices. But send a damn notice instead of just complaining, yes, this person has a reputation for not paying. What are you doing? Why are you not just writing a stinker to them? You don't need a lawyer to teach you how to write a stinker, to write one for you. Just write. And get them to stop using your works. Why? Strike it down. Go online and strike it down. That's it. See how that gets them to come and pay.
Live performance is slightly trickier because you've already handed out the work, right? You've performed your services.
That's tricky.
And that's
in
the
any
main
case, I
portion
would say
of
that,
collection.
I think just smart business advice is don't do things without an advance, man.
Right, definitely. So the first half usually, as by rule now, I get before I start work. But not for live because I'll trust you until you let me down. And then the one time you let me down, then things get...
I think it's the same across services. That's just how the service sector
you
unfortunately
need
works
some
in this
level
country.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the thing that we were also discussing on the group, I think drummers should unionize, There's no better way to go about it.
Please, everyone talks about unionizing and doing it, and then it becomes like some, morcha agenda
not at all.
sort of thing. But okay, forget unionizing. Yeah, for starters, at least khud ka khud dekho and just send a damn
But we're worried,
communication.
burning those bridges and not getting recurring
How are you
work from
burning?
them.
Have you not already burnt a bridge by this person constantly, by you constantly
We
chasing
live in
and this person
perpetual hope that
paying.
yeah, sometimes on film projects, production managers are so scummy that during the duration of this project, they'll do everything they can to fuck you out of your money. But then as soon as it's done and you meet him for the next project, everything, you guys are best friends again, and then you dance that whole dance again.
Can I tell you something? More often than not, the people who actually own the production company don't even realize that they're production managers.
Yeah, of course.
But why are you dealing with them? Which is why I'm saying write to the main guys, tag the directors, bring it to someone's attention,
That's
someone who's in a position to do something about it.
And then they threaten us with you'll never work again type repercussions, and everyone knows it's a
but
game.
But why do we also go that extreme? Right? हम इतने frustrated हो जाते हैं that by that then when we want to take action also, it's like it's
not
this
diplomatic
one
or
extreme.
salvageable.
Yeah, why? Just there's a way to be polite yet firm.
So I mean, there is a way that we can recover our dues from these people for live shows without necessarily never getting work from them again. In a way that maybe they'd respect us for what we've done as
100%. There's a gentler, nicer, professional way of doing it, and it has been done. It happens routinely. So 100% yes.
Also, maybe the thing you said that you'd have to spend more money upfront for legal help than you will ever see a light at the... Say 15,000 rupees for a live show that you've done once in November and haven't still been paid.
50?
15. Drummers don't get paid 50,000 per show. I mean, they do, but not when they're late for sound check. But anyway, yeah. So, what would someone like that do? Is it possible to send a legal notice?
Yeah,
is there a template for a legal notice that you can send somewhere on
you tell me.
AnandAnandKhimani.com where maybe you have a blog section for struggling musicians? Once I add you to the group, we won't let you go. It'll just be like, yo, Priyanka, we need a template for drummers, not bass players, not guitar players.
So long as you don't make me do templates and let me draft it my way, I'll be on this.
Done,
group.
of course. I mean, we'll keep you occupied forever. Then you won't do any paid work ever again. It'll just be helping out 150 drummers in India, and you'll have to watch their nonsensical cover videos where it's like, hey, look at what I played.
So long as those cover videos are licensed.
They're absolutely not. All of it illegal as hell. Interesting. Whole new subject. Say I want to make a cover video. How do I go about it? Because this is something that I was actually doing. Do you listen to Dafir Yusuf by any chance? Amazing oud player. So I was doing a drum and saxophone cover of his song, which I plan to put up on my next free day. Now tell me, how do I go about it? Because I love Dafir. I don't want to take money out of his pocket.
Find out who owns the rights. Who owns the rights to his
that album or that song?
Yeah, not the record label. The underlying works, because you're going to do another version. You're going to use that melody and the lyrics and do your own take on it, right? You're going to adapt.
Is a lyric, then yes, I'm going to use it hard. That's all he does in it. He just screams.
Okay, so find out who owns it.
Okay.
The artist may not necessarily own the rights, or he may.
Right.
You'd need a license from him to be able to create another version. And because there is a video, so it's a video being slapped onto an audio. So you synchronize the video to the audio, and therefore you also need a sync license.
Okay.
Right? And in addition to that,
I don't want to make the video.
That's not it. But afterwards, you're going to communicate that video to the public, right? Because copies will be made. So you also will need a public performance license again.
Okay.
So public performance is not just when you're performing live, but
Right.
communication to the public is going to need a public performance license. So very often when we do sync licenses, people will pay the rights holder, and then they get so taken aback when we say that, but this is not it. You also need a public performance license or license
And-
for even on the for reproduction, right? Say for example, if it's on a streaming service,
Right.
even the process of streaming is making a cache copy. So that is what we
Right.
call as reproduction, because there is storage. It is being stored somewhere on the server, and a copy is being made temporarily,
Right.
so that you can stream it, right? So both those rights at times are covered by a public performance organization. So you're going to need that license in addition to this adaptation and sync license. So all of this put together gives you 100% go ahead for you to go ahead and make your version.
So 99% of the people
Don't
slapping
do
their
it.
covers on YouTube are in blatant
And then when it gets, yes, they
violation of-
are. So a lot of platforms take blanket licenses so that user-generated content can continue to stay online. Very often I'll have people
just
coming
can't
and telling
monetize it.
me, depends, yeah, but very often I'll have people coming and telling me that, but this, I to put these, मैंने तो बहुत बारी पहले किया है, or, this person's version is still online, how come they struck down only my video? But to that, my simple answer is, आपने signal 10 बारी तोड़ा, आप 9 बारी नहीं पकड़े गए, right? It doesn't make the 9 times legal.
That's some good advice there. Yeah, just
you,
because you
thank
got
you.
away with it a few times doesn't mean you should get away with it.
It's the exact same logic.
I agree with
right?
you completely. Yeah.
But yeah, it needs to be licensed. It is being licensed somewhere at the back end. Someone somewhere in that chain is obtaining a license so that those works continue to be online. Take a simple example of your Insta stories, where now you can insert those music clips at the back, right? So that is being licensed by the platform. That's why sometimes you'll say that, sorry, this work is not available in your region, right?
Because we don't
because
have the
perhaps
license
there
for
are
that.
limitations with that specific license. Whoever was the rights holder was not in a position to extend it to your territory here. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it is licensed at the end of the day. That's how you get to use that music in your stories, right? User-generated content, UGC, जिसको हम कहते हैं. When you upload that UGC, say it's a funny video of your dog and your Balam Pichkari playing in the background. It stays on Instagram because Instagram as a platform is going through the trouble of putting blanket licenses in place so that user experience doesn't suffer, right? But now when you do something specific that is for you and you have a brand associated with, etc., you're going to need a separate sync license, because at times that's not purely user generated content, right? It's not something you're doing for fun. You're doing it because there's another gain, there's another aspect to it. So for that, you will still need a specific license, and there you'd need a adaptation sync license, or definitely a sync license if you're using the sound recording as is,
a video.
and then because there's a video, and then you'd need your relevant reproduction public performance license to be able to communicate it to the public.
Right. See, again, something that I would never have figured out, because you go to YouTube, you see people saying, I don't own the rights to any of this.
All the time.
What does
you
that even
follow,
mean?
So we're doing this true or false section on my Insta page every Monday, where we're trying to bust a lot of these myths. So we'd hear all of this, right? That I can use, if I use up to 30 seconds, it's okay. It's not infringement.
I saw that post and I was going to ask you about specifically that. Yeah.
And then they'll have a bunch of things that, I can cover someone else's song so long as I don't monetize it, or if I give them credit for it, all sorts of things, right? The answer is no.
Cold
I'll let you find
cash.
out next Monday. But coming back to the 30 seconds, right? So that's like a big favorite. I do it in all my workshops, where I sort of ask people that, tell me what's the correct duration. It's obviously to throw them off, but I get all sorts of, no, you're taking my punchline away.
Sorry. Hey, edit that out. We can start again. Okay.
It's like people will say 15 seconds and 6 seconds or 43 seconds. Like I get really specific random numbers. But no, the correct answer is 0, right?
No one says 0.
No one says it. And I don't know where people get these numbers from, or from where this notion has gotten into people's heads that I can use up to 30 seconds and it's not infringement. Again, if you had created some amazing piece of music and some dude was taking 20 seconds of it and put it in their song that then went viral, are you going to be okay? You're going to be like, no, I don't care if it's just 20 seconds, right?
Yeah,
so every second of unauthorized use is infringement, period. There is no concept of, this 30 seconds, 15 seconds bit under a Copyright
And
Act.
whether you're profiting or not doesn't matter
It's not
either.
the test at all. Again, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Like commercial gain, a lot of people will say that, oh, but I'm not monetizing it.
Or it's a student project or something along those lines.
There are certain exemptions under the copyright law, even under the Indian Copyright Act, as far as say review or critique is concerned, or during the course of education, a teacher giving instructions to his students, a bunch of other things, right? But certainly all of what we do on YouTube is not falling under that category, and you do very much need a license.
Right, yeah, you can't really reproduce someone else's song even as a drum tutorial, for example, right? Because you would still be attracting maybe viewership, things like that, and it's not purely in an educational kind of way.
Yeah, you'd still be able to argue that, actually. I would argue
Interesting.
that.
Okay,
but
now we're
that's a
talking.
very longer, complicated
Right, so this
conversation.
cover that I'm performing is for educational purposes.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah,
We've taken up.
Loophole. I should have been a lawyer. It's amazing. Great at spotting loopholes. What'd you say, producer? Horrible thing. Okay, is there anything else that you'd like to ask? Yeah, sure, that we need to get from Miss Khimani.
I think we're good. We covered most of the topics.
Yeah, anything not related to music, like life? Yeah, anything at all.
I don't know. I think I thrashed artists quite a bit, so now I'm feeling really bad. Like
It's okay.
all my clients are going to be like, oh, what the hell?
You know, we're going to label a segment specifically that says Priyanka Khimani trashes artists.
No,
Then
no,
another one that
please
says
don't do that.
Priyanka Khimani trashes promoters, venues, anything she didn't that she missed out on?
Priyanka Khimani is now on a drummer's group.
On a drama group. Oh, that'll be tough. Okay, yeah, anything you want to talk about, just holistic stuff, anything at all. This is not just a music-related thing. We like to not speak about music. Last guest.
Anything law
Yeah.
related is also cool.
Yeah.
That's just for him, but okay, sure. Sure. Anything law-related is also cool.
Non-law related, he's saying.
Oh, okay.
Non-law
Like
related.
Law related.
Yeah, this
That's
was,
actually true. Yeah, just about.
this was a very deal-focused,
Just
So
about-
one interesting thing was like everyone I spoke to. So I met Shreyas. She had like all about music, right? And so she was telling me about how so many people want to work at your firm now. Like it's become this thing.
You are the rock star amongst the rock star business.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So, I mean, what do you think is the right way to go about, like, if you're a, I don't know, like, if you're a budding lawyer, say, for example. Or if
This
you
is
want-
about you.
It is. This is
It's
not-
okay. It's okay.
So I didn't think of this podcast to get advice. He started this podcast to get advice. We just got roped into this plan.
Exactly. This is my plan alone. No, but like basically, like if you want to get into the commercial side of things, also forget law. Right? Like, you just want to be
Right.
commercially savvy. Because what I see often is artists are not even thinking about the commercially.
Nobody is. The
relevant
artist is in, the manager is in, the agent is in. People are only
Right.
thinking of the check amount.
Continuing to
Right.
bash
No, the
everyone.
figure,
I like
like,
it.
it's
Bash
the-
away.
Sorry,
No,
yeah,
it's
no,
okay.
I should really stop.
Priyanka Khimani, number one. Everyone else sucks.
No, yeah.
Just come to me, guys.
No, yeah.
I will
No.
I will solve your problems. I will solve your problems.
But these aren't blind checks.
Yeah,
No,
that's
no,
true.
no,
If you
no,
make a
but-
certain amount of money, come to her, guys. She will solve all your.
Yeah.
Say that's not
I know. I'm going to hit you up. Next time we go to collect money, you are coming
Shit, dude,
with
he's
me.
gonna make me do a lot of free work.
No, not at all. Not at all. This was the only free work that we're getting
Yeah.
out of you.
Also, he jokes a lot more than he talks.
No, but
No,
to
but generally, like, how does one become more commercially savvy? Because
it
like,
just
artists
comes
are
with
not
years of
thinking
experience.
Yeah.
It comes. I'll tell you what. And I'm not saying that I got here magically or that you know it all. It doesn't
Right,
work
right,
like that. But a lot of it has been you learn from your experiences, right? So even if I look at the kind of negotiations we would have done 5 years ago also to what we do today has evolved so much. And हम
Right.
कैसे सीखे, right? You've done a document, say 6 months later, 8 months later, something comes up where an artist has realized that, but I was the exclusive, a few years ago we started this trend of, for films,
Okay.
even though you have the entire soundtrack of the film, you'll have one extra promotional song.
Right, with the
right?
dance and all of that.
And that could be like someone who's completely different, who's not actually the composer of the film.
Right.
So then you have the composer saying, wait a minute, am I not the composer of this film? I am, this should have been only my soundtrack. So how has some other kid come and done it? So you learn from that experience. So the next time you're negotiating, you're then making sure
Put in a
and saying,
clause like that.
not only am I exclusive to the soundtrack of the film, if you decide to have another song that's only for promotional marketing purposes, क्योंकि कभी-कभी वो गाना picture में भी नहीं रहता है, right?
Right.
It's somewhere in the end scroll, or it's purely for marketing.
And they'll probably spend most of their marketing budget
And
on
that's
that
the
song,
other thing,
which is
exactly,
shortchanging
right?
your work.
Then the client gets upset. So I'm saying, and look, all of these things you can't necessarily predict because things are changing, marketing tools change, and this is just one example, right? So then you learn from that experience and you say that, okay, fine,
Next
time when I go back, I want to negotiate differently. But so also on the back of that, it'll help me. Then you learn from that experience and say, okay, what more should I have had the foresight to predict?
Right.
Look, in one-off situations, it's it's okay to say that, look, no one saw this coming, and sure, everyone understands genuinely that no one saw it coming, but that's your job, right? As a lawyer, you need to see it coming.
Yeah,
And
true.
again, these are not legal points. This is not legalese. This is pure commercial.
Right.
You need to know
Yeah, exactly.
where you wanting to position your artist. So, for example, if I am giving the rights to the entire soundtrack, which I will, right, 9.9 or 10 times, even if I'm today the biggest composer in this country, I hate to say this, people always think that there's a lot of bargaining power. Unfortunately, there isn't.
Is there not?
The bigger you are, the lesser your bargaining power is, because then you're also demanding a big fee. So
I've
I'm like, boss,
seen
I'm
that,
going to
yeah.
write you a big check and then you don't going to tell me what I do with this.
Right.
Which
Makes
kind
sense.
of makes sense, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too.
True.
So contrary to what people think, it's not necessary that there is more bargaining power just because you are that big. Sure, there are other commercial considerations that you'd manage to get away with. But take even, just when we talk about having foresight, you've given up all your rights.
Okay.
But I know that, boss, this particular composition is a signature composition because it's coming from me. So no matter what language it will keep getting made, that composition is always going to resonate across the board, right?
Right.
So you should be able to say that, okay, look, have all of the copyright, but every single time you decide to make it in a different version or in a different language,
Exclusively
it will
come to
still
me.
come back to me.
That's important, right?
Let me again make that other sound recording in that other language.
Right.
Also, sometimes there are smaller things, right? You can't just literally, for example, translate a song. Even the translated lyrics have to fit in the meter, have to lend the
Right.
same meaning. It has to be sung by, as a composer, I might say that, dude, it has to be sung by a singer, even if it's in Tamil. I want that singer to have this quality of voice so that it sounds like what the Hindi version
Right.
sounded.
It's honest
And
to my
these are all
vision.
creative considerations. Yeah, exactly. So to be able to negotiate all of that, so it just comes with years of trial, error, knowing what worked, what didn't work, what
Right.
backfired, all sorts of things. Yeah, but there's really no. Unfortunately, they don't teach you a lot of this in law school, and I do feel that overall, I wish our curriculum was more practical driven.
That applies to every
yeah.
education thing in
So,
the
I mean,
system, though.
Yeah, for example, like so many of us, like even when I was getting into IP law and stuff, like I knew what the provisions are, but how the hell does that
And none of
translate
this is about
commercially?
IP, if you see, right?
Exactly.
Right.
None of this
It's
is
not-
IP.
It's contract, and then it's
Exactly.
yeah.
And I think, again, because we're full service, right, we're able to sort of pick and so we'll also do all general commercial, we'll do general corporate advisory, we'll do all commercial litigation. So you're seeing bits and pieces of different things and you're able to apply it to your deal. So that's the other thing that I tell people, that stop pigeonholing yourself. It doesn't,
Right.
at least I come from that school of thought that
Right.
yes, expertise will come in a subject, but that doesn't mean that you look at one specific bare act. You have to know a
Know
bunch
the-
of different
yeah.
things to be able to apply to it. It just makes you more dynamic as a lawyer.
Right.
Is someone out there doing the math for, let's say you're one of these bigger artists and you do have some amount of room to negotiate with your label, is someone out there doing the math to find out if taking that big paycheck upfront now is more profitable or taking maybe a smaller paycheck
So-
and then profits or
No,
a
I'm glad you
percentage of
bring that up. So I think we do see a mix of both. We do see deals where there is an overflow and you end up, splitting revenues. They do happen.
right.
In fact, there are deals where there is an advance. Once the advance is recouped, people will split
Stop paying.
overflow. So that's happened. It's not unique to India. It's not, it
Yeah.
does happen. It's been going on for a while. But to answer your question, unfortunately, there is very little access to data
Right,
today.
yeah.
right? You don't get data. I think even record labels for
Would
that
prefer
matter
not
struggle
publishing.
with even they themselves struggle with getting access to data because they have to rely on streaming services that are collecting that data, right? That tell you
Right.
user patterns or
There's no
like
standardized metric of
demographic.
this.
So and that's information that you're protecting with all your life because that's key.
Information is
So
money, right?
I think no, we don't. So you're kind of shooting in the dark and just sort of going by views, streams, doing some
Right,
math.
and maybe trial and error, like you said, you could go with this deal the first time, see if it makes
Yeah,
you less money in the long term or more money.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
also another question that I've actually, since you've come at these institutions from as while representing artists, have you spawned a whole team of lawyers who are now there to maybe help them out with the kind of demands that you're bringing forward for your clients when it comes to film production houses,
So,
record labels?
so most of them have, no, honestly, I think
Don't smile that much.
I was
like, "Oh,
gonna
it's all me,
say
guys."
no. I was gonna say on the opposite side, and it's unfortunate. The only response you get is, "Oh, sorry, company policy," and
What
I
does that
really
mean,
feel
though?
so. That just means that I'm not willing to exercise my grey cells enough to come back to you with a more logical explanation for what you're asking. Or for
Okay.
turning down what you're asking, right? It's so easy to be on the other side because you're wearing a big studio hat or a record
you're
label
wearing
hat. You don't want to negotiate at all. You just say sorry, company policy. But
Right.
company policy bhi aap hi ne banai hai na.
Right,
It's
so
not.
go
It's
through
not
that,
the.
no?
It's not the law, right?
Yeah.
So there's in that sense. I don't think it takes rocket science to be on the other
Right.
side because you're not doing enough work. Sure, we do see a lot of interesting in-house lawyers also from time to time, but we find it challenging to be on this side of the table more
Right.
often than not. And it's actually I've worked even with a lot of corporates now, right? We advise a whole bunch of media companies, streaming services.
No conflict of interest yet between.
No, of course we're very, very conscious. We won't act on the same side of the deal.
Right.
But in a whole different way, I think their challenges are also different. So you do see you need good commercial legal minds who are willing to find a solution.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just an impasse where this is what the artist wants. This is
It
what.
can never be, boss, because others will never move forward, right? And like I said in the beginning of this interview, that's the role of what a good business affairs legal person would do is
To
that you
negotiate.
find creative. And honestly, it's not a process that happens in isolation. In fact, more often than not, legal is the last to be brought into a deal simply
Right.
because we attach such little importance to contracts, right, in this country, or to sort of crystallize it on paper. So you have business guys who are negotiating and doing it. So but on all the good deals that you'll see, it is always a combination of legal and commercial, always.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just kind of goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. That's great. Anything else?
One non-law related question I have. So
Is it about kombucha?
No, it's not about
Okay.
kombucha. So, like I said, right, like you build this reputation around music law, and like it's very the brand language of Khimani is quite out there. So
Okay.
is it like a more
Tell me
conscious-
also. I didn't know this.
No, no,
Hey,
it's
don't
because, like,
flatter our guest that much. Just
No, for
face
sure,
like-
right? Like, because is it more like a conscious process where you thought, you know what, I'm gonna take this particular aspect and raise more awareness about it, and like
No. Honestly, like we're just having fun with it. I think we
Nice, okay.
get it. It's cool. It's different. We understand a lot of tech. We understand new
Right.
media. I think it's a big edge that we have because it's a generation thing also. So no, it isn't if I till date don't have a website. So that's saying something. I don't subscribe to any rankings, awards. In fact, I get a lot of flack for sitting out of it. So there goes your answer. It's not conscious at all. We're just having fun with what we're doing.
because you don't see other lawyers being that out there. Like you don't.
No,
like, you know
they
the
are
content.
out there. You'd be surprised.
No, but they're not out on social media talking to people and actually.
But I guess
That's
it's also
also
the
a
nature of what I'm
generation
doing.
thing
It's a
as
generation
well,
thing. It's the
yeah.
nature of what I'm doing. Look, it's not like others are not trying. I mean, you should really go on and see the kind of effort. I mean, someone launched, couple of them launched their own YouTube channels and had like, बहुत
Does-
होता
I feel
है.
like your radar of
Uh,
music law starts and begins with her.
Maybe like,
That's
you're
a
just
you
looking at the
thing.
cool ones out there.
Oh, it's some kind of mutual flattery. So we should get out of here. Oh man, thank you so much for your time though. I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion.
Sorry to keep you guys waiting.
It's okay.
Again. I
If my client yells
apologize.
at me for being late for soundcheck, I'll ask him
Send them to me.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Khimani se baat karo.
Done. Oh, I love it. I love playing this card. But we were genuinely very excited about this interview because we thought it would be useful advice.
Oh,
Our
good.
previous guests just talk about music because they're musicians. And
Right. But I hope this was useful.
it was amazingly
Yeah.
useful. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just in my dealings alone, I know how better now to interact with potential clients, so on and so forth.
Yeah, don't be so scary. Like, be nice to them.
They're the scary ones. What? Just like, bhaiya, paisa milega? I'm like, no, Shreyas, bad Shreyas. Okay, chalo.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a ton, guys.